Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. You're currently tuning in to Updates at Noon with me, Brenda Lepong. In our leading stories today, Siti Bainun found guilty on neglecting and abusing syndrome Down teenager. And also students, teachers allowed to wear sports attire in hot weather. The Kuala Lumpur Sessions Court today found Rumah Bonda founder Siti Bainun Ahmad Razali guilty on charges of neglecting and abusing a teenage girl with Down syndrome known as Bella. Judge Israel Nizam Sanusi, when handing down the decision, said the prosecution had succeeded in establishing the case beyond a reasonable doubt at the end of the defense case.
Siti Bainun was charged with neglecting and abusing the 13-year-old Down syndrome girl, causing the victim to suffer post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD). The judge rejected Siti Bainun's testimony given at the defense stage, where she testified that Bella's physical injuries were because of spilled hot water, after finding that her statement was a hearsay, as she was not at home when the incident occurred. He also found that Siti Bainun made up false stories about the incident of the spilled hot water, as he deduced that the incident had never occurred from the accused testimonies. Judge Israel Nizam therefore found that a reasonable doubt had failed to be raised at the end of the defense stage and sentenced the 31-year-old founder under Section 31, Subsection 1, Subsection A of the Child Act 2001, which carries imprisonment for up to 20 years or a fine of 50,000 ringgit or both upon conviction.
Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah and Raja Permaisuri Agong Tunku Azizah Amirah Maimunah Iskandaria will undertake a special visit to London, United Kingdom from today until 14 May.
According to the Foreign Ministry, Their Majesties were invited by King Charles III to attend the coronation ceremony at Westminster Abbey on 6 May. The Majesties have also consented to attend the reception ceremony, which will be hosted by King Charles III at Buckingham Palace. Wisma Putra notes that the special visit is significant in the context of consolidating the existing and close relations shared between Malaysia and the United Kingdom, especially between the two countries' royal institutions and the bond of the Commonwealth. The special visit also marks the importance of close ties between the two countries, collaborating in various fields, which is supported at the highest level of the country's leadership.
Several proposed amendments to the Enforcement Agency Integrity Commission, or EAIC, Act 2009, Act 700, were among the matters deliberated on at the first discussion session on strengthening the EAIC yesterday. The session also discussed on the formation of the Pro Tem Committee agreed upon by the Cabinet of Ministers on 19 April.
Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Datuk Seri Azalina Othman, said in a statement that the session discussed the Prime Minister's mandate on the proposal to establish a new independent body and strengthening of EAIC to monitor wrongdoings of enforcement agencies. This Pro Tem Committee will, among other things, study the need to include the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, as one of the enforcement agencies listed under EAIC's supervision. Following this, Azalina said, the Pro Tem Committee will hold engagement sessions soon with all interested parties. This includes government and opposition members of parliament, as well as non-governmental organizations.
Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Zamri Abdul Kadir undertook his maiden working visit to New Zealand yesterday, which will end tomorrow. The visit came at the invitation of his new New Zealand counterpart, Nanaia Mahuta.
New Zealand is the first Pacific country visited by Zamri since his appointment to the post in December 2022. According to a statement by the Foreign Ministry, both ministers will discuss the progress of the existing bilateral relations, as well as exchange views on regional and international issues of mutual concern. They are also scheduled to jointly witness the signing of Malaysia-New Zealand Strategic Partnership document by senior officials of the Foreign Ministry and the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, that aims to elevate the existing close bilateral cooperation between both countries to a higher level. New Zealand remains Malaysia's second largest trading partner in the Pacific region. The total trade in 2022 was valued at 11.3 billion ringgit, an increase of 49.6% compared to 7.55 billion ringgit in 2021.
Former Deputy Secretary-General, Policy and Control of the Home Ministry, Datuk Muhammad Fauzi Mat Esa, officially begins his duty as the new Secretary-General of the Ministry of Communications and Digital KKD today.
He arrived at the KKD's building in Putrajaya at 8:53 a.m. today to officially clock in and begins his duty. He was greeted by the ministry's top management. Datuk Muhammad Fauzi replaced Datuk Sri Muhammad Mentek, who held the post since the 4th of November 2020. He has held various positions in public service sector previously, including the Director of Organisational Development, Public Service Department, and Deputy Director General of Immigration Operations.
More news ahead. MOH hopes to get full support on health white paper. Stay tuned. But first, students, teachers and members of the implementing group in all educational institutions under the Education Ministry (MOE) are given special permission to wear appropriate sports attire during the current hot spell to avoid any health complications. In a statement today, the ministry said neckties are also not mandatory for students wearing school uniforms.
Schools are urged to constantly monitor the weather conditions so that immediate action can be taken to safeguard the welfare, health and safety of students, teachers and members of the implementing group. According to the statement, the hot weather conditions can trigger a heat wave that is harmful to health. Schools are allowed to close if the hot weather is at the level 2 warning, with temperature exceeding 37 degrees Celsius for 3 consecutive days.
The water level at all dams in Negeri Sembilan are currently above 90% capacity, despite the district of Jempol recording high temperatures. Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Aminuddin Harun said even though Negeri Sembilan recorded temperatures exceeding 35 degrees Celsius, the state still receives rainfall almost every evening.
Nampak hujan setiap hari, setiap petang kita akan terima hujan yang agak lebat dan insyaAllah bekalan air mencukupi buat masa ni. Cuma di Jempol kalau dimaklumkan suhu dia tinggi, jadi saya memohon kepada penduduk Jempol supaya jaga kesihatan, berada di dalam kawasan yang teduh, tak kira di bawah pokok ke, di dalam rumah ke, tetapi jangan terdedah terlalu lama di kawasan terbuka.
He said this at a Hari Raya Aidilfitri feast in the Seremban City Council. The agriculture and farming sector is also in good condition as there have been no reports from farmers as of yet. Schools in the state are also allowed to close if temperatures continue to exceed 37 degrees Celsius as permitted by the Health Ministry.
The Royal Malaysian Air Force (TUDM) and the Malaysian Meteorological Department (Met Malaysia) conducted cloud seeding operations in Teluk Bahang Dam and Air Itam Dam water catchment areas in Pulau Pinang starting yesterday. TUDM announced the operation in a statement and said that it would continue till tomorrow.
The operation will also involve the National Disaster Management Agency (NADMA) and the Pulau Pinang State Government. The operation that began at 11 a.m. involved the preparation of 4 1,500-litre tanks of salt solution. which were loaded onto the C-130H aircraft by the number 20 squadron crew. The aircraft was flown by the commander, Lieutenant Colonel Muhammad Khairul Fadli Abu Bakar, with 2 pilots, 5 crew members, 4 Met Malaysia staff and a water supervisory body employee. They departed from the Subang Air Base at 2:45 p.m. The cloud seeding operation was conducted as part of efforts to restore water supply to areas affected by dwindling reserves in water catchment areas.
The Ministry of Health (MOH) is hoping that the Health White Paper, which is deemed the beginning of the journey to achieve a more sustainable and competitive Malaysian health system, will get full support from the government at all levels of society. Her Director General, Dr. Muhammad Razzi Abu Hassan, said the Health White Paper is expected to be tabled at Parliament in June.
Jadi apa yang kita bincangkan pada hari ini ialah mengenai dengan kertas putih kesihatan yang mana kita telah mencadangkan diadakan penambahbaikan ataupun dengan lebih tepatnya lagi sedikit reformasi untuk kita supaya kesihatan kita ini adalah merupakan yang mampan dan juga berdaya saing.
Among the issues raised during the town hall session were the improvements in the health services, which are often plagued with overcrowding issues. This is especially prominent at the emergency department and health clinics. The Health White Paper will also focus on healthcare financing constraints, as the drastic increase in the demand for health services and the rising cost of healthcare have also threatened the sustainability of healthcare funding.
Gaza and Israel traded fire after Palestinian dies in Israeli detention. Stay with us. The Israeli military traded fire with Gaza freedom fighters on Tuesday in a flare-up of violence following the death of a Palestinian prisoner who was on hunger strike in Israeli custody. The Israeli army said it hit Gaza with, quote, tank fire in response to rockets from the Palestinian enclave, sparking a renewed volley from Gaza.
The exchange of fire came hours after the 45-year-old prisoner Kader Adnan died, nearly 3 months after being detained in the occupied West Bank over his ties to the Islamic group. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Shtayyeh described his death as a, quote, deliberate assassination, charging Israel had killed him by rejecting his request for his release, neglecting him medically and keeping him in his cell despite the seriousness of his health condition. News of his death was initially followed by 3 rockets fired from Gaza. Israel's retaliatory tank fire was met with a further 22 projectiles launched from Gaza. A joint statement by factions in Gaza, including the territory's rulers Hamas and Islamic Jihad, said the rocket was an, quote, initial response to Adnan's death. The Magan David Adam Emergency Service said 3 people were wounded with shrapnel in the Sderot area near the Gaza border.
Police in London yesterday arrested a man allegedly armed with a knife and accused of throwing suspected shotgun cartridges into the grounds of Buckingham Palace. The arrest at about 7 p.m. local time comes just days before King Charles III's coronation, which will be attended by global royalty and world leaders amid a massive security operation.
The Metropolitan Police said officers also conducted a controlled explosion on a suspicious bag the man was carrying as a precaution. He later added that it was not treating the matter as terrorism-related at this time. The man has been arrested on suspicion of possession of an offensive weapon after he was searched and a knife was found, the London Force said in an update some 3 hours after the incident. Met Police Chief Superintendent Joseph MacDonald said in a statement that there have been no reports of any shots fired or any injuries to officers or members of the public. British media reported that neither Charles, 74, or his wife Queen Consort Camilla, 75, were at the palace at the time. The security operation to protect the route to and from the Abbey, dubbed Operation Golden Orb, is one of the biggest in recent years. It will include rooftop snipers and undercover officers, as well as airport-style scanners, sniffer dogs, and a no-fly zone over central London.
A senior U.S. envoy called in Brazil for robust support for Ukraine against, quote, bully Russia, renewing concern over remarks by Brazil's leader who partly blamed the West for the war. Speaking to international relations students at the University of Brasilia, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield said that Ukraine's struggle was about defending democracy.
We encourage countries to engage on issues related to finding a solution to the war, but it is important that as they do that, they have to engage with Ukraine. We cannot move forward in a situation that leaves Ukraine out of the equation. So I recommend it and encourage and understand that the government has engaged Ukraine and that there will be an upcoming visit to Ukraine in the coming weeks.
Lula, who returned to power in January on a visit last month to China, said that the United States, which has sent billions of dollars in weapons to Ukraine, was, quote, encouraging the war. His remarks triggered condemnation from the White House, which had earlier cast Lula as a natural ally on democracy, climate change, and other issues of importance to President Joe Biden. Brazil has not joined sanctions on Russia, whose foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, recently visited Brasilia and voiced gratitude for Lula's remarks. Lula, a former trade unionist who sought to chart out a more independent foreign policy when he was last in power from 2003 to 2010, has clarified that he condemns Russia's invasion while calling for talks to end the conflict.
Europe must boost mass production of vital semiconductors due to worsening geopolitical risks in Asian chip-making centres. European Commissioner, or rather Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said this at the groundbreaking of a €5 billion chip factory in Dresden, among a series of new semiconductor projects in Germany.
To the future.
The EU is racing to reduce reliance on semiconductors produced in Asia, and last month struck an agreement aiming to double the bloc's global market share to 20% in 2030 and mobilize massive investment. Von der Leyen said Europe was home to many leading companies in the chip sector, but had failed to treat the production of semiconductors as a priority in recent years. She added that the current global focus of chip production was in Taiwan and South Korea, regions prone to high tensions. The EU chief also said the bloc was working to ensure Europe has access to critical raw materials used to make consumer electronics through a recently unveiled draft regulation.
Global focus, as we know, is at present in time.
And US President Joe Biden will not negotiate with Republicans on their push to make spending cuts a precondition for extending America's debt ceiling and avoiding a disastrous default. Without a debt ceiling extension, the US federal government could run out of money and default on debts as early as 1st June.
Biden has offered to meet the Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy, for crisis talks at the White House next week. However, he is doubling down on a refusal to link Republican spending cut goals to the usually uncontroversial accounting procedure to allow more government borrowing.
The debt limit was increased 3 times under President Trump. It should be no different this time. Given the limited time Congress now has, it is clear that the only practical path to avoid default is for Congress to suspend the debt limit without conditions.
Jean-Pierre said Biden was willing to discuss a separate process to address budget cuts, but said the debt ceiling issue should be entirely set aside.
More than 11,000 Hollywood television and movie writers went on their first strike in 15 years on Tuesday after talks with studios and streamers over pay and working conditions failed to clinch a deal. The strike means late-night shows are expected to grind to a halt immediately, while television series and movies scheduled for release later this year and beyond could face major delays. In sports, Arsenal bounced back to first place in standings. Stay tuned. We begin with news on Premier League race. Arsenal bounced back from their deflating loss to Manchester City by easing to a 3-1 victory over struggling Chelsea at the Emirates Stadium this morning to keep their title dream alive.
It took 18 minutes for Arsenal to go in front with Granit Xhaka sending a low ball across the face of the penalty area, where an unmarked Odegaard was waiting to drill the first time rising shot in off the underside of the crossbar. Xhaka again supplied the pass from the left, and Odegaard, this time meeting the ball on the penalty spot, finished firm and low pass the beleaguered Kepa Arrizabalaga. 3 minutes later, some more lax Chelsea defending allowed Arsenal to make it 3-0. After missing multiple chances to clear the ball from across to the back post, Jesus slammed the ball in from close range. Chelsea offered more resistance after the break and prevented a more one-sided scoreline, with Noni Madueke's consolation goal midway through the second half. The goal at least prompted more intensity from Chelsea, but they could not come close to threatening Arsenal's 3 points. Arsenal have now moved back above City by 2 points at the top of the Premier League. However, Mikel Arteta's side have played 2 games more.
Cristiano Ronaldo became the world's highest paid athlete after his move to Saudi Arabian side Al Nassr nearly doubled his annual playing salary, while Paris Saint-Germain duo Lionel Messi and Kylian Mbappe round off the top 3. Ronaldo, who joined the Saudi club on a deal until 2025 after leaving Manchester United last year, earned $136 million, with Forbes saying this annual playing salary went up to an estimated $75 million.
Ronaldo's contract has been estimated by media to be worth more than 200 million euros. PSG forward Messi, 35, was next on the list after bringing home a combined 130 million, while club teammate and France captain Mbappe, the youngest on the list at 24, earned 120 million to sit third. Los Angeles Lakers player and NBA great LeBron James, 119.5 million, and Mexican boxer Canelo Alvarez, 110 million, rounded up the top 5. Forbes said its on-field earnings figures include all prize money, salaries and bonuses earned in the last 12 months, while off-field earnings are an estimate of sponsorship deals, appearance fees, licensing income and cash returns from businesses they operate.
And still in football, Paris Saint-Germain forward Lionel Messi will not have his contract renewed at the club following an unauthorized trip to Saudi Arabia. Now, Messi signed an optional 3rd season clause in his contract when he first arrived in 2021, and club officials have decided to not activate it.
The 35-year-old was suspended for 2 weeks on Tuesday as he was supposed to practice with his team following a 3-1 defeat at home against Lorient in Liga A on Sunday, but instead flew to Saudi Arabia. The Argentina World Cup winner is banned from playing or training with the team, and his pay will be docked during his suspension. Messi will miss the upcoming Liga A matches against Troyes and Ajaccio, but might return for the match against Usera on 21st May. He will then be available for the club until the season ends on 3rd June. PSG are top of the standings with 75 points from 33 matches, 5 points ahead of second place Olympique de Marseille.
Moving on to tennis, Stefanos Tsitsipas traded a great night on return with a modest night on serve to advance to the quarterfinals of the Mutua Madrid Open in the early hours of Wednesday morning.
The Greek conceded 3 service breaks to world number 42 Bernabe Zapata Miralles, but remained in charge throughout, thanks to 7 service breaks of his own in a 6-3, 6-1 victory. The 2-time Monte Carlo champion dominated his opponent's serve, restricting Zapata Miralles to a first serve winning percentage of 38%. Tsitsipas, whose victory was highlighted by a series of down-the-line backhand winners, has reached the quarterfinals or better of his past 10 clay court events. He will next meet Germany lucky loser Jan-Lennart Struff. Earlier, Struff continued his hot clay court, charging into his second consecutive ATP Masters 1000 quarterfinal after a tight 7-6, 6-7, 6-3 win over Argentine Pedro Cachin. After rallying from 1-4 in the second set to force a tie-break, Struff missed the opportunity to close out the match in straight sets. However, he carried the momentum of his comeback into the third set to twice break Kachin to close out the match. Meanwhile, Zhang Zhizhen made history at the Madrid Open as he stunned American Taylor Fritz to become the first Chinese player to reach an ATP Masters 1000 quarterfinal. The 26-year-old continued his dream run with a 3-6, 7-6, 7-6 defeat of the 8th seed.
And Novak Djokovic will be free to play in this year's US Open after the United States government confirmed it is lifting its COVID-19 vaccine mandate on international travelers. Now, Djokovic, one of the highest profile athletes to remain unvaccinated, has not been able to play in the United States since the vaccine mandate came into effect in November 2021.
The 35-year-old world number one last played the US Open in 2021 when its bid to complete a calendar year Grand Slam ended in defeat in the final to Russia's Daniil Medvedev. Since then, Djokovic has been a glaring absentee from US tennis tournaments due to the travel mandate. The 22-time Grand Slam singles winner applied unsuccessfully for a special exemption to enter the United States to play this year's Masters events at Indian Wells and Miami Open. US Open organizers as well as the US Tennis Association both called for Djokovic to be granted an exemption. Djokovic was deported from Australia last year and missed this year's Australian Open due to his vaccine status. However, on Monday, the White House confirmed that its vaccination requirement for travelers entering the United States would be lifted on 11 May.
Sukan Si Kamboja 2023. Skuad bawah 23 tahun negara kini menggalas cabaran bagi memburu ibu segala pingat. Rabu 3 Mei, saksikan perlawanan bola sepak Malaysia bertemu Laos 8 malam di saluran OK dan saluran sukan RTM. Saksikan juga secara penstrima langsung di RTM Klik. Eksklusif hanya di RTM.
And wrapping up our bulletin this afternoon with a reminder of our leading story. Court found Rumah Bonda founder Siti Bainun guilty of neglecting and abusing Down syndrome teenager, causing her to suffer from PTSD. Do join us again tonight for the Malaysia Tonight at 8:30 p.m. on Saluran Berita RTM for more. You can also stream it online on RTM's Click website and mobile app, and you can always watch it again on our official Berita RTM YouTube channel. Till then, I'm Brendan Lepol. Thanks for watching.